I'm Jennifer Menken. I am the exhibit coordinator for the Coffee, the World in Your Cup exhibit at the Bell Museum of Natural History. It's an exhibit that looks at coffee, which is one of the most traded commodities on the planet, right behind crude oil, and is a daily staple in many people's diet, I guess you could say. And our exhibit looks at the history and origins of coffee, the farming of coffee, global issues related to coffee, and what's called the perfect cup, which is sort of modern coffee culture. So, part of the exhibit focuses on the history and origins of coffee, and coffee was originally discovered in Ethiopia roughly 1,000 years ago. It's a very important component of Ethiopian culture. This is an Ethiopian coffee ceremony set. In the process of the ceremony, the coffee is roasted, brewed, and then shared among the family. So one of the other sets that we have on display is a Turkish coffee set. Turkish coffee is traditionally brewed very thick and is often spiced with other spices. I mean, we do our milk and sugar. They use things like cardamom. And a big part of that culture is about sitting around coffee and talking. So it's sort of one of the origin places of the traditional coffee house. Much of coffee is actually hand labor. It's individual people picking, drying, and obviously transporting the coffee at the place of origin, and a lot of times they carry really big amounts of coffee beans, and this is a standard size bag of coffee beans that some laborer in the field would carry to the truck or to the plane or to wherever they needed to get to the transportation. And this one is 125 pounds, and if you really want, you can try and lift it and carry it well, you can't carry it on your back, but you can try and lift it. That's about as far as I'm going to get. So, but it really just gives you a really good understanding of how much hand labor goes into the coffee you probably drink. So, people, when they think about coffee, they might think about roasted beans, and obviously they think about ground coffee, which is, what you pour the water through to produce your coffee. But they often don't think about all the steps that are sort of involved. And so again, coffee starts in a fruit, which is depulped. The next stage is what are called parchment beans, and they are what you get after you depulp the fruit, you wash it, you ferment it a little bit, you dry it in the sun, and it has a thin layer of, an extra layer of like skin on the outside, which needs to be hulled, it needs to be taken out. And then the inside of that is actually the green coffee, and this is what is shipped all over the world. And from there you have, once you get it to Minnesota, you give it to one of your local roasters, or maybe even roast it at home, and then that roasting process brings out all the nice flavors and aromas and caramelizes the sugars, and then of course you grind it to make your coffee. One of the other, I think, really interesting and kind of fun parts of the exhibit is that we do have coffee bags from about 45 different countries, at least, from all around the world. Coffee is grown mostly in the tropics around the equator, and we often don't think about the fact that coffee comes from Vietnam and Indonesia. We are pretty familiar with, in the United States, Colombian coffee, maybe Kona coffee from Hawaii, maybe Guatemalan coffee. So it's just a way of showing that almost every country around the tropics produces some amount of coffee.